Okay, what's up, beautiful people? We're here for another session. I don't know if I was quite prepared for this, but it's all good. We'll make the best of it. A lot of updates, a lot of things to talk about tonight. We're gonna keep it kind of loose. I'm chilling tonight. Nothing too serious, nothing crazy, but we are gonna get into it. There's definitely a lot of things to talk about. Uh, you know what? I might not quite be prepared. I forgot my coffee out there, so I'm not sure how much we want to get into tonight. I do have a lot to talk about, but I want to keep all of the topics kind of focused. So I don't want to jump around too much tonight. We'll see where it goes, but I'm definitely going to cover all of the drama surrounding the Billy Carson.
I didn't let you dance for the other ones, so I let you chill out for a little bit.
You let me chill out for a little bit?
Yeah, I didn't let you do the other ones so you could chill out.
Okay, Nova, come say hi, and then I'm going to dance with you, and then I have to finish my video, okay?
Hi.
Okay, I'm gonna go dance with her because she just asked me to dance with her. So, yes, it's late, but it's a Saturday night. So, Nova, after this, can we settle down, brush your teeth, get ready for that night? Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go dance with her real quick, and then I'm gonna get my coffee, and then we'll get started here. I don't want to end this stream because I don't want to have to, like, open it back up and then repost, type in all the titles and stuff. So, honestly, I wasn't ready to go live, but I hit the button and it started counting down. So, like I said, I don't want to have to close this one out and then like redo it all. So, just give me a minute. What's up with the microphone here? Yeah, so after this live stream is over, I'll cut out the beginning anyway, so it'll jump right into the good stuff. But Nova, you're the best. You know that? I love you. I'm talking to everyone. I'm talking to the whole world. Yes, my subscribers. Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm gonna go grab my coffee. I'll be right back, people. Okay, people, we're back. Sorry about that. That was fun. Once in a while, actually quite often, she just randomly asks me to dance with her, so it's really hard for me to refuse it. Unless I'm really like in the middle of cooking something and it's gonna burn. Other than that, like, or if I'm in the bathroom, other than that, I pretty much drop what I'm doing every time to go dance with her whenever she asks. So, yeah, this should be a good session tonight. Oh no. Still not set up with the computer yet. I'm gonna get Ryan over here or Johnny or one of them to help me really get this in order, but I haven't figured it out yet. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little stuffy tonight. Huh, okay. This is funny, but all right, I'm here. The thing is, I want to be able to read comments while I'm live. And for the last few sessions, I haven't been able to pull that off. I'm trying to I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a way to be able to view my streams from the outside while I'm live. So I got like different devices here I'm trying to work from. But it's not easy. I think if I could figure this out, I should be able to check out either the Facebook comments or the YouTube comments. I don't think I could do both at the same time, but it's all good. Okay, we're here. So yes, tonight I want to talk about the Billy Carson and Wes Huff situation. There's a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of really, really interesting updates to talk about. And then I'm going to give the most objective perspective I possibly can on this. And then I just want to talk about why it's so important to keep these conversations going, because I really do think these things are essential to our growth, spiritually, consciously, mentally, intellectually, all those things. It's really important. So I'm not sure if I should like wait for anyone to join in. It doesn't really show me. Again, I'm not set up for this, but whatever, we will get there. And I'm gonna get the computer set up. And once I do that, once I get Ryan over here or something to get me all hooked up again, so I could do these live streams properly from my computer, I'm gonna be reaching out for more interviews and trying to talk to some of you guys more. A memory popped up on my Facebook today with the interview I did with Jesse from the Dream Dojo and the Lucid Dream Initiative. And of course, I was trying to do my research on a lot of this stuff that I wanted to talk about tonight, but it was like when that popped up, I just happened to click on it and started listening to some of it, and it was awesome. Jesse's a really cool guy. Definitely can't wait to reconnect with some of those people again once I'm set up better here. But yeah, the trajectory's going. It's slow but steady, and I just passed 500 subscribers on YouTube, so that's exciting. I'm excited for that. It does seem to be picking up a little bit more lately. I'm hoping as I build the catalog. Yo, Jesse is watching. What up, homie? Yeah, see? Okay, this is why it's good, because I got this tablet over here where I'm watching the stream, and if I didn't have that here, I would not be able to see the comments from Facebook, so that's cool. That's something I've been lacking for the last few weeks, so yeah, I can't see comments on Facebook in real time at least. That's a good thing right now. I will Okay, I will definitely get it all set up so I can see YouTube comments. But anyone watching from YouTube, I'm sorry, and I'm going to keep reminding you periodically throughout this live stream that I can't see the YouTube comments right now. Maybe once I finish this session, actually definitely once I finish this session, I'm going to go through and start looking at YouTube comments to see what I might have missed. Let me grab my mouse real quick. All right. Yeah, so this, like I said, this is a loose session. Nothing too crazy, nothing too serious. I didn't do any. Yo, Jesse, you said been really inactive on social media yourself. Seeing me stay consistent and keeping these combos going is truly inspiring. Thank you, man. Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy, man. It's really not. Like, unless, it's not easy to stay consistent, man. And I've been more inactive than usual, but I'm trying to put more of that energy into the research side of things. And also, like, I've been more active on YouTube than I am on Facebook. So it might seem like I'm inactive, but yeah, man, I'm trying to stay consistent. That's really important. And just know that, like, a rising tide lifts all ships. So, like, I'm not going to stop. I absolutely cannot stop. So through all the struggles, through all the troubles that we have in life, I'm definitely going to keep this going. And I just want to build. At this point, I want to build a library of valuable content to have online in the digital universe, just to provide as much value as I possibly can for the world. And of course, what I'm saying, most of the things that I'm saying are not very unique, and it's nothing different than what anyone can find just from searching for these things. But, like, I do realize that just being one more voice in the conversation does increase the possibility of someone coming across these ideas. And once in a while, I do think I have a unique perspective to throw in there every here and there. Steven, you said you've been too active. I have a family. Yes, I do. I get it, right. You're single with no kids. You got the time, yeah. There's so many good creators. Oh, thank you. And I'm one of them. Thank you, man. Seriously, like, it's people like you. Honestly, Jesse, like, you're an inspiration to me too, man. Regardless of whatever happens, no matter what, like, I go back and I see the things you say and just your entire approach. Jesse, you're the man. Steven, yes, you are too active. No, it's good. It's really, it's important right now. And I've talked about that before. Like, I was anti-social media for a long time. I was all about, like, grassroots connection. And this is, like, it starts out with, like, my music. I was always out there, like, trying to sell mixtapes. And I was actually out there doing shows in clubs and hotels and wherever I could. Literally out there just in the streets trying to put my music out, rhyming on the corner, like, thinking that's the only way to really get it. And I really think that I kind of hindered my growth in the music category, at least, from being that way. I was really apprehensive about bringing it all to social media because I'm like, that's shallow. It's not organic. It's not where it's at. But it's like, I that's one major thing that I've changed my perspective on, is that, like, if we can channel this, if we can utilize this tool, this social media we have, I think obviously it's inevitably going to be there. So I think we can definitely change the world for the better. I think there can be a net positive here, honestly. And I'm seeing it. Like, it's not, Steven, you said it takes a lot of work. You're really indulging. You're an introverted person. Me too. Believe me. I really am too. And a lot of people don't, like, they think it's ridiculous when I say that, but believe me, I'm very introverted. You used to be in the big crowds. You feel small in big crowds. Yeah, right. There's definitely something to that. And yeah, man, like, I would love to, homie, Steven, I know you're introverted, and, like, these live sessions they're very awkward, and, like, it's really weird to kind of shatter that glass. But, like, dude, I would really love to bring you up live and just talk to you. Like, I mean, I would love to talk to you, but, like, I'm not just going to start giving you phone calls on the side. Like, I don't even call my own sister or brother enough. But, like, these live sessions, this is something I'm going to do no matter what. Mainly, it's important to show the algorithm that I'm consistent with these live streams, as consistent as I can be. I would love to bring you up and talk to you and interview, and just, like, not really, like, formally interview you, but I would love to chop it up with you at some point, because you got a lot of knowledge. You got you do spend so much time diving deep into all this stuff. And like, believe me, everything that you tag me in, and my girl was sitting here with me earlier, homie, I look at everything that you tag me in. I may not respond to everything, and I might not give a bunch of feedback on everything you tag me in, but every video you, or every post, everything, I check it out. I watch the videos. I don't like always have time to dig as deep into every individual concept as I would like to, and I definitely don't have enough time to like actually respond to everything. But I appreciate it, and definitely keep throwing all these things my way, because I'm pulling little things out of everything you share with me, and I appreciate it, homie. But I've been trying to focus. I have been trying to focus lately, and the research never stops. So even though I don't have a lot of time to like actively engage with everyone as much as I would like to, because I'm engaging with my family and like I got work and everything, but the research never stops, man. I'm here for it. I love it all. And there's so much out there, so much information. And that's kind of what I'm going to get into tonight. Some of the, you said same. I'll send a message. I would love that. Yeah, cool. Thank you. It's just what you're really curious about. Yeah, you learn a lot through music. Lyrics of a song can like guide you down a path and you never would have gone down otherwise. Yeah, man, and that's why music is so powerful. And that's it's another thing I would love to do a full session on, just like the power of uh, music and like oracular tradition in that sense, and why music is so important. And I've talked about it in short snippets a lot in the past, but totally understandable, man. I just lay it out. Take it, leave it. It is what it is. Nah, I love your approach to it. I really do, honestly. And I appreciate the fact that you keep me in the loop. And I see, and I know like you do it with everyone, man. People like you are valuable because you push this stuff out there and you share it, and you're building a lot of connections behind closed doors that I think are gonna create some big waves in the future. You never know what you show someone and how it might inspire them and how it might change the trajectory of their life. So, and that's why a lot of this social media stuff can be so powerful. But with that being said, I'm sorry again. I'm not seeing YouTube comments. I don't know. I should be able to tell up here, but like I can't keep going up and clicking on that. So anyone watching from YouTube, I apologize, but I'm not going to see your comments. But yeah, Jesse, that reminds me of what we're going to talk about tonight, and why I think it's essential for people to tread lightly with their information, and what type of information you absorb and you might repeat, because yeah, Jesse and Steven, you both got black and white pics, right? Duality, man. Yeah, I do have the yin yang on, but you can't see it. Yeah, beautiful. Yo, you two are real. Seriously. What are you doing? Why you got your jacket on? Get a blanket. Yeah, I know where a piece of paper is. I got you. Yeah, I'm doing my life. All right, close that door. All the way. Thank you. Sorry. Steven, you said one of these days, let's make time to FaceTime and Messenger. You got that? Okay, that's a face-to-face conversation we can have. Yeah, definitely, man. That would be cool. But I feel like you have a lot of information, a lot of interesting insights based on, I mean, obviously you don't specialize in any one field or anything, but like you have a wide, broad range of information in as you know, dealing with a lot of different things. I would love to ask you some questions and get your perspective and your opinion on some things, and they might be valuable to some people out there. It might be valuable to put that out there to the public. So I'm just saying, but it's fine, man, and I get it. And if you just want to do a private FaceTime, that'd be cool too. Definitely. I got some questions to ask. So, and Jesse, I'm gonna get you on at some point, regardless, man. I got to get you back on because, like I said, I was just watching one of our old interviews. There's definitely some things I'd like to talk to you about. Oh man, so Bass Forge and the Abundance 1000 are their page names. They have an interview and they dive deep into the yin yang and Taurus fields. See, this is what I'm talking about, man. Thank you. Thank you. I'll definitely check that out. I will go through afterwards and look them up after I'm done with this session. Thank you. Yeah, cool stuff. There's so much amazing information out there. That's why I enjoy doing this. Honestly, there's just so much to talk about. And that's why I want to get into some of this Billy Carson and Wes Huff stuff, because I think the validity of the information is important. Although it's great to entertain all types of ideas, it's like your sources, cross-referencing sources is really, really crucial. Said, bro, I didn't even graduate high school, never went to college. Jesse, what up, man? Jesse, take the floor. No, Stephen, thank you. No, it's cool. I'm gonna get into this a little bit, but yeah, it has nothing to do. That's cool. All I did was graduate high school, so I never went to college. Although I gave a few speeches out of college, which I'm really proud of that. I made a song a long time ago called Unity, and a friend of mine was taking a philosophy course at Northampton Community College, and he played the song for his teacher, and his teacher emailed me and asked me to come in and talk about the song. I ended up going back a few times. Michael, I doubt he'll ever see this, but if he ever does, man, shout out to you, because I appreciate that, all those opportunities. And when I was giving those speeches, it was probably horrible. I think back now, and like, it was probably horrible. I was definitely awkward. I don't think I said things the way I wanted to say them, but it was an experience. It was cool. I would love to go back and give some speeches these days, now that I'm a little bit better equipped for public speaking, at least a little bit. I still have a lot to work on, but yeah, so I want to talk about the Billy Carson and Wes Huff situation. I just want to give like a quick rundown on what's happened so far, and then get into like some ideas about where we stand at this moment, because it's a reflection of a much bigger mental shift that's going on in our society, in my opinion. It's not just about these two individuals, but so for anyone that doesn't know, or anyone that is slightly interested, I can't keep doing reaction videos. I wanted to mention that, like, this has blown up so much that I can't possibly do reaction videos to every response that these people are doing. There's so much going on out there. So, but basically, Billy Carson, famous for his talks about human consciousness, ancient tablets, Sumerian mythology, things like that. He had that debate with Wes. Wes kind of schooled him in that debate, Wes Huff. And Billy Carson's response was inadequate, in my opinion. And I mentioned that in the first video. I mentioned that, Billy could have responded much better. Basically, Wes Huff is an actual. I don't think he's a scholar, and when people keep considering him a biblical scholar, he's not. But we're not doing any type of appeal to authority here, and it's not about that. He is definitely well educated in these topics, and he's definitely getting his PhD in, what was it, New Testament, New Testament scrolls or something, New Testament literature, something along those lines. So definitely he schooled Billy Carson. What I didn't appreciate was Billy Carson's response to it, and I said that a while ago. And Billy Carson's the man. You 100% agree. Yeah, Billy Carson's the man. But Wes Huff told him that if he didn't like the way the video went, they could run it back. And yeah, I saw that video, Stephen, that you shared, and I saw that before. Yeah, he says he has the receipts. So like he was messaging Billy. He was saying, we won't put, you don't want us to put that video out. You know, Billy Carson didn't want them to put that video out. Wes Huff told them they won't put it out if you agree to actually come debate us. And, you know, if you want to run it back, we could do it again. But Billy did not respond to that. And so Wes Huff and them, they put the video out. Billy didn't like that, but like considering all the claims he's made and how much of a following he has, you would think he would have responded a little bit better than that. I don't see why he didn't. Like, I feel like it was a weak move on his part. And then he did that live stream, and he admitted during that live stream that that wasn't the best response. Now, he did another video after that where he was interviewed, and he said that he failed in his response. And I agree with that 100%. You know, besides, regardless of Wes Huff correcting him on some of his sources, that's irrelevant. His response is all that mattered, and he failed in his response, and he knows that now. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if he actually owns up to it and if he'll actually run it back. Wes Huff is still willing to debate again if Billy wants to, but like I said, I don't think he's going to enter the arena anytime soon. But in that first response video that I made, I mentioned that Wes Huff used the similarities with older texts that predate the Bible, some of the similarities between them and the Bible. He used that to support the validation of these texts. And I mentioned in the first video that Billy Carson could have used that for his argument, but for some reason he didn't. He was definitely off his game that day. Or maybe he's off his game in general. Again, I don't follow Billy Carson that much. So, but the fact that a lot of the literature in the Bible was taken from older texts, that's not something that Wes Huff should have been able to use in his favor. What I give Wes credit for is that he's good at debating. You know, he's definitely good. He's an apologist, so he's a well-practiced Christian apologist. So he's definitely well trained for these things. I think he works for the Apologists of Canada or something like that. So he's good at flipping these things. But what the issue that I had, and I mentioned, I shared that in the one video where Alex O'Connor called him out on how some of his information is definitely not in line with the current most updated and most broadly accepted academic thinking. That's gone crazy lately. So there's been a lot of responses to that. So Alex O'Connor didn't respond to the Wes Huff and Billy Carson situation, but when Wes Huff went on Joe Rogan, you said exactly, this is why I'm pushing Bass Forge interview with Sean Clayton. Talk about the Terrence Howard and Eric Weinstein, because what are they saying is it's hard for a guy like Eric, who's the leading guy in science, and Terrence's background with being an actor. I don't think it was fair. Those guys who I mentioned, super smart, vortex mathematics, like way beyond the scope of what I know. But the more I watch, the more I kind of understand. And they tell it so well. Yeah, I appreciate people that can do that. I really do. And honestly, with the Terrence Howard and Eric Weinstein situation, I thought their conversation was great. I didn't think it was that bad. And I'm really like, I'm going to keep commenting on every YouTube video about this. And I've been, if you go through and watch some of their videos. But with Terrence Howard, I think he needs to link up with a guy like Nassim Haramein. And just like you mentioned with those guys you're talking about, vortex mathematics and all that, Nassim Haramein is definitely the leading quantum physicist in this field, who is connecting the micro with the macro, and he's supposedly found a formula to connect gravity with the quantum and the cosmic. Hold on one second, everyone. Sorry, people. My girl just got home from a birthday party with her boss. So yeah. So it's been really interesting up to this point. So yeah, I was saying I think Terrence Howard needs to link up with Nassim Haramein because Steven, you should definitely check out some of his stuff. I'll tag you in some of it, or I'll send some of it to you. I've been following Nassim Haramein for a long time, and my homie Jimmy, he joined into the last live stream. It'd be cool if he joined us here. But Jimmy knows way back in our high school days, I was checking out some of Nassim Haramein's content, and he's expanded a lot since then. He's an actual practicing quantum physicist in the field, and he has a lot of incredible discoveries in that category. And everything he's talking about sounds like it would fit in perfectly with Terrence Howard's philosophies. Yeah, Billy kind of chickened out. Him going to his house at 2 a.m. speaks volumes. Yeah, man. I can understand the frustration, like, oh no, we can't let this air because of my reputation. But in all reality, isn't he the one who's always pushing and pushing? Yes. And when the push comes to shove, he showed his true colors. I agree. It could have been so much better, and I'm definitely disappointed in that. But the point is, and I don't think enough people are acknowledging it, Billy Carson was right about his overall points. He actually had some valid points. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I mentioned it in my first response video to the whole situation. Billy Carson was overall correct. You know, Wes got him on that one small detail, and that's what blew up. But if Billy would have leaned into it and would have, I think he's popular enough and has enough resources. And I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I have no doubt in my mind that he probably had people emailing him or messaging him on the side, uh, ready to support him. Like if he was willing to go back and debate Wes Huff again, he probably could have. He probably didn't even need to do any research or any work himself. Like he's popular and big enough and has a big enough team to where I'm sure they could have thrown together a comprehensive and relatively valid response to Wes Huff. But he didn't do that. Yeah, he went straight into defense mode or like fight or flight, and he just chose flight. You said, send it, bro. I'll check it out. I was never into this stuff. Catch me 7 years ago. I was partying, sloppy drunk, no care. Definitely changed, and this is your outlet from not drinking and going out. I get it, man. I get it. Wow, 7 years ago. So, yeah, for the fans in the community, I think they need to get up and shake it off and speak man to man. I agree, but it's like there's enough. Honestly, there's enough opponents out there for Wes Huff. So, and much better ones, and I think Alex O'Connor is one of them. So, Alex O'Connor, when I mentioned that, he called out Wes Huff kind of. He had, and people, I'll get into that at the end, but he called out Wes Huff and he didn't respond to the Billy Carson situation. Alex O'Connor responded to the Joe Rogan interview. Alex O'Connor's not even that familiar with Billy Carson and stuff. So, and he's an atheist, and man, he's so good. He's so damn good. It's so satisfying to watch some of his debates. But so he did that response, and then Capturing Christianity, another YouTube. So many people have come out of the woodworks now, and some big, some small, but there's a few key names in here that we have to keep in mind that are involved in this conversation. And one of them is the YouTube page Capturing Christianity. The other one is Myth Vision Podcast. It's an atheist YouTube channel, but I love them. They're awesome. They're so on point. And then Ruslan KD. So Ruslan KD, he is a Christian YouTuber, in this field, but not a scholar by any means, but he seems like a cool guy and he makes some interesting videos. So he responded to Alex. Alex ended up coming on his show and just completely schooling him in every way. And this is not just my opinion. Scroll through the comments section in that video and you'll see even Christians responding to it saying, I'm a person of faith, but I agree with Alex. And I literally, you can pull up that video, every comment. I started taking screenshots and then I just gave up because every single comment as you scroll from top to bottom is people just agreeing with Alex on this. And they even said like, Ruslan, I love you. I've been following your channel for a long time, but Alex is right. And it's like, but they didn't give it to him. These are the giants, if you will, and everyone's responsible. Yeah. It's like Billy's this, he's that, without any actual facts or getting to back it up. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it was great. So, Alex was just kind of correcting Wes Huff on his claims about the Isaiah scroll, although that was one of the things he corrected him on. And it was only a 2-minute part in his video, but that kind of blew up because it's valid. I mean, Wes was wrong. Wes made a video saying that he was wrong, admitting it, but still explaining his overall point. He didn't admit that he was wrong. He said that he was confusing the Isaiah scroll for a different scroll. So he admitted he was wrong, but he didn't say it. And so Ruslan KD, he brought Alex on and trying to tell him he was nitpicking on some of these things. And like, Alex is like, no, I'm not nitpicking. His point was that Joe Rogan's biggest takeaway from his interview with Wes Huff was that the Isaiah scroll that we have these days is word for word, 100% exactly the same as the original ancient scrolls. And Alex called him out on that, said, because that's what Wes Huff told Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan said later on in the interview, that's a miracle. But it's not 100% word for word the same. It is not. And once he corrected them on that, they wanted to say, oh, so, and there was another YouTuber named Dan McClellan who made this video showing all the differences between the new text and the ancient text. So Ruslan KD pointed out, he said all of those differences are minimal. He said, he emphasizes how they pulled up the pictures on the screen and they showed all the differences. A bunch of them were like the word "and" was added. And some of these Christians, they're like, oh, you're trying to say they're different, but all they did was change the word "and." That doesn't count as a difference. Like you're nitpicking here. No, that's not all that's different. And it was great that Alex went on their show to show them that and got him to admit that there are actually major differences besides just the word "and." There are entire sections of the scroll missing. And so the Christians respond like, okay, this isn't even a big deal and we're used to this because in our Bible it shows there's little footnotes that show, oh, this piece is missing from this part. Okay. And Alex called him out on that right away. And it's amazing the amount of patience that Alex shows in these interviews. And these are so Alex told him, he said, those footnotes are not here about the Isaiah scroll. They're not there for that. So that doesn't count. Okay. So they say, all right, so maybe they're not there, but that doesn't change the overall narrative. Okay. But he was wrong still. So it's like, and Alex called him out on it. They keep moving the goalpost. And it's so clear and it's just so obvious. It's actually almost tough to watch, but also satisfying at the same time. So, and the reason I want to give these updates is because like even that one interview between Alex O'Connor and Ruslan, that's like a 3 something hour interview. And, there's been so many response videos and some of them are over an hour. Some of them are like 40 minutes. There's so much information out there. And I don't know if everyone else has all the time to go through these things. It works for me because I listen to these interviews while I'm driving to and from work. Even when I'm at work, sometimes for hours straight, I could keep the little earbud in, and hopefully my manager's not watching, but I could keep my little earbud in, and just for like 4 or 5 hours straight, I can listen to some of these things. I can't take notes and I can't actively scroll through anything. But while I'm working, I can listen to these interviews. So I have listened to all of them, everyone I can find up to this point. So, and some of them I've listened to multiple times. So, basically Alex schooled them on that, and they won't admit it. Alex, there's so many points where he's just not understanding what Alex is saying. And Alex is so patient and just gives them so much grace in this conversation. It's unbelievable. So I'm sorry. So I hear a dog barking. I don't know if that's a neighbor's dog. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, there's this house across the pond over there. Sometimes the dog gets out and ends up making its way over to the community here. So I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but yeah. So up to this point, it's like these guys are trying to correct Alex. For some reason, they think they got the upper hand. Alex mentioned something like there's so many points where he shows so much patience with them. That's what I wanted to talk about. And he brings up what goes on in the comments section. He said the videos are long. I'm trying to get through an hour podcast. I used to play your full album at work, but I gotta find this guy. Just send me some links, some names, anything. Oh, I'll definitely, Steven, if you're down, I will send you all of these videos because, yeah, there's a lot to get through. But this one is so satisfying where Alex just schools these guys the whole time. And it's funny because they had made reaction videos to Alex previous to this, pretty much mocking him. And they were like, he better not mess with Wes Huff. Like, please. Alex schooled this guy on his own podcast for 3 hours straight, undeniably. And so they've made videos since, and all they had to say was like how Alex brought up the comment section in their conversation, and he's like almost, and he said he's not trying to big brother him, but he was trying to big brother him. Like, Alex, you got to get past the comment section. Don't, when Alex mentioned the comment section, he was mentioning an overall perspective that most of the public has about these things. And that's why he mentioned it. And I have no doubt, I'm sure if he can make a response video. So what they say is like, so these guys think that Joe Rogan is coming around to Christianity. They think that eventually he's going to lighten up to Christianity. So when they were arguing with Alex, they were saying how, Alex was nitpicking. And he was saying, I don't think I was nitpicking because this is the biggest takeaway that Joe Rogan had from that interview was that the Isaiah scroll over thousands of years was 100% word for word accurately translated over all this time. And it is exactly the same word for word. And he said that alone is a miracle. So the fact that's not true, that's just not true. Now, you could say overall, the overall takeaway from the scroll is the same, but it's not word for word the same. And his point is that if it was 100% word for word the same, Christians would use that in their argument that there's some sort of God-given connection here. You said being a rapper and liking rap, I love the friendly competitions. Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, exactly. This is almost, it's just like a battle, man. It really is. But it's great, and I love the debates. And also, I got to say, Alex O'Connor just did it was one of those, I forget the channel that does these, but they're great. I've seen them with Ben Shapiro and stuff in the past. But he did one atheist versus 25 Christians. It was great. It was so satisfying. But regardless, he did this interview with them. They were telling him he was nitpicking. He was saying, I don't think I was, because this was Joe's biggest takeaway. So you said Joe. No, Joe is Joe. That guy has a documentary on DMT. If Joe was a Christian, who would be one? But he's just enjoying life. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But these people think that Joe's coming around to Christianity, and I mean, maybe would have started coming around to Christianity if the Isaiah scroll was 100% the same. And he mentioned in an interview after that he still thought that was a miracle. Ben, I know him, smart guy. Yeah, Ben Shapiro's the man. Ben Shapiro also did a debate or a conversation kind of with Alex O'Connor, and it was great. It was really interesting because that's two really sharp, quick thinking people. It was great. I still think Alex kind of schooled him, even though Ben was older and more experienced. But Alex O'Connor is only 26, so like dude is just crazy smart. And in this interview with Ruslan that he did, they kept telling him how smart he was. They couldn't deny that. But so my point is that they hope that Alex O'Connor will come around to Christianity. They think Joe Rogan's coming around to Christianity. And when they were interviewing Alex, they were in contact with Wes Huff in real time. And they were messaging Wes Huff. And Wes Huff was getting back to them while they were in the interview with Alex. And they were like, oh, so Wes Huff says that he talked to Joe Rogan. He explained that the Isaiah scroll is not 100% the same. He told Joe that he made a mistake with that. And he said that Joe Rogan's response was essentially the same. He still thinks it's amazing. Now, this is a message that Wes Huff gave to Ruslan that Ruslan was conveying to Alex. And he's like, I could show it. I could pull it up on the screen. I could show it to you. And Alex is like, yeah, okay. So he said, he's the guy who wears a yarmulke. I don't know how to spell that. I'm 28. Dude's going to school me. No, you're cool. Yeah. But so he's like, so Joe's reaction is still the same, knowing that it's not 100%. He still thinks it's amazing. And Alex is like, okay, but maybe Joe is like, oh, wow, cool, still cool. But if he still takes it as some sort of miracle, if he keeps bringing it up as some sort of amazing thing, then Alex said he would be surprised. And I would be surprised too. But I think now Joe Rogan, knowing that it's not 100% word for word the same, it's not quite, the impact is not the same, is not the same. You said you're stoned, man. That was a terrible explanation, but he's Jewish, right? Ben Shapiro. Yes, Ben Shapiro is Jewish. And Alex O'Connor is, I don't like to call him an atheist anymore because he's kind of changed that title to agnostic, which I appreciate more. And that for a long time, I've always considered myself to be agnostic, just in the sense that we don't know. So, yeah, so it was great. Yeah, Ben Shapiro is Jewish. And when Ben Shapiro went on the Joe Rogan podcast a long time ago, Joe kind of pressed him on some of those points. And I thought that was satisfying. As sharp as Ben Shapiro is, he still couldn't really make a strong argument, even against Joe. So his debate with Alex was more of like just a mutual respect between the two and a conversation. But yeah, he's not getting it. And even Alex O'Connor's general predisposition to all of it is just that he doesn't know. And the toughest questions to answer when he is debating these Christians, there are usually things like the fine-tuning argument, the fine-tuning of the universe, saying that if the force of gravity was just a tiny, tiny bit stronger or just a tiny, tiny bit weaker, this entire universe as we know it wouldn't be able to exist. It would have all completely came apart or would have completely collapsed in on itself. And that's just one metric, but there's all the forces that we know of in physics. They're fine-tuned to exactly the right place that they need to be to make this reality for us necessary. And that is like one of the strongest arguments for God. It's hard to argue against that. You know, you said Joe's on solid ground. People come to him. It seems like he observes and doesn't absorb. But all those conversations. But it has to rub off on him. And it does. Yes, it does. And so when they say how Joe and these guys, this Ruslan guy and a lot capturing Christianity, they think that Joe's coming around. And that was one of their follow-ups since they got schooled by Alex O'Connor. That was one of their follow-up videos, was about how they think Joe's coming around because they have like backdoor information about how Joe has been involved in the church community more and stuff like this. Trust me, and I'll put it out. I will put it out here publicly right now so that it's always out there, and we could come back and check this 10, 20 years from now. I don't care. Joe's not going to come around to Christianity. Joe Rogan is not going to end up being a Christian. All of these Christians are hoping for it. And they think that what Wes Huff did really sparked the light of God within Joe. No, it's not happening. I could be wrong, and I might be wrong, and if I am, I will eat my words. And I will reference back to this video, and I will admit that I was wrong. And they also think that Alex O'Connor, or because he's so interested in Christianity, they think that eventually he's gonna, they say when 35-year-old Alex O'Connor is gonna have a very different perspective than 25-year-old. He's not gonna be a Christian, okay? He's way too logical for that. His arguments are way too strong. Of course, he appreciates Christianity. And I do too. And I don't want to come across the wrong way. And I didn't want my content to be geared in this direction as like anti-Christian. I never wanted that. Steven, you said, would gravity be like reverse buoyance? I'm into omnism. I see the belief in all things in a way omnipresent. I agree with that 100%. Yes, gravity would be like reverse buoyance. Or no. Gravity would not be like reverse buoyance, actually. That's, bro, in a decade. Same with Bass Forge and that realm. The man is something in your mind, fire in your mind. Okay. Yeah, so the fine-tuning argument, and it's not just about gravity. So I was just using that as an example. I don't want to get too caught up on the gravity thing. That's a whole nother conversation. But the fine-tuning argument for God is just that if every law in physics and if every law of science, if any single one of those laws was tweaked just slightly in any direction, it would make our overall existence impossible. We wouldn't exist to observe this universe. And not just life on Earth. It would make potentially the entire universe as we know it wouldn't be able to exist. If buoyancy. Oh, you use the rocket like he's out there. Yeah. Will gravity be like reverse buoyancy? No, yeah, I get it. That's something that flat earthers use for their argument, actually. But gravity, that's a different conversation. So I wasn't trying to open up that can of worms. But I mean, we could definitely talk about that. But I really wanted. My point was that the fine tuning argument for the universe, even Richard Dawkins says that that's one of the strongest arguments for the argument of God's existence. And sure, and you could say it is, but not for the Christian God. It has nothing to do strictly with the Christian God, the God of the Bible. So the strongest arguments for the existence of a God have nothing to do with Scripture. So you can make arguments for Scripture, but they're not very strong arguments. They're pretty easy to pick apart, and it all comes down to basically faith. But the other arguments that are pretty undeniable, they only support the validity of some sort of creator. So the fine-tuning argument is one, and you could say, okay, this universe is perfectly fine-tuned. for existence as far as we know. Like the law of thermodynamics. If it was just slightly different, we wouldn't be able to see anything. There wouldn't be any heat. We wouldn't have, so it's not just gravity. It's all of the laws in physics. If any of them were slightly tweaked in any direction, we wouldn't have this universe as we know it. So, and their argument is that it's either by chance, by necessity, or by design. Now, the chances of all of the forces in this universe being perfectly fine-tuned, and I think it's important to recognize, and Alex has made this point before, that we're not talking about like the chances of the Earth being in the Goldilocks zone, the perfect zone for life. No, it's not just that. That's not what the fine-tuning is. It's the chances of everything making it possible for us to even form solid planets to sustain that life. Like if the forces of gravity, or if the speed of light even was slightly different, reality as we know it wouldn't be able to exist. So, not just this Earth that can sustain life, excuse me, but the entire universe. So, and there's a lot of analogies for this, but they say the chances of this world turning out the way that it is, with us being able to observe it and question it, it's like randomly throwing a dart into space. And if that dart could continue forever, you aim for a planet out there or a star. And if you just randomly throw that dart, the chances of actually hitting a star or a planet are very, very, very low. It will most likely just go through darkness forever. So so basically the chances are very, very, very low of just by chance this universe being sustainable and solid enough for us to experience it and observe it. So they say it's like a tornado building a perfectly structural house. That's how low the chances are. And there's some strong arguments to be made there. But what a lot of atheists would argue is that it's just by necessity. These things actually happen because it's the only way that they possibly could have happened. And we know we have something rather than nothing. Therefore, something had to happen. And the only way for something to happen is if all of those laws were exactly laid out the way that they are. So that's one argument. A lot of people don't really like that. Then the only other argument is that it was by design, is that it was some intelligent creator that made all of this. And you can make a strong argument for that, but it doesn't have to be the God of the Bible. Panpsychism would be just as valid in this sense. You could say that the entire universe, everything in the universe is conscious, and the universe is the conscious creator. It doesn't have to be the biblical God. Stephen, you said, let's stay on track. You said like the exact size and distance of the moon from Earth as well as the Goldilocks zone seems intentional or by design. Yeah. Do you know about the Rosicrucianism? Dr. Robert Gilbert is a Rosicrucian, and their views and teaches are so awesome. This goes deep into science and spirituality. It's an entire thing in itself. We are using physical instruments to view a physical world, so in that sense, that would be the telescope, if you will, or microscope, to look deep into the spiritual realm. I'm only recommending these guys because there's so much to bounce off of. It kind of blew my mind. That's why I'm so eager. The all is mine, and the mind... the all is mine. The all is mental. Sure. Yes, Stephen. I'm vaguely familiar with Rosicrucianism and some of their beliefs, and I do know it gets deep into a lot of the science, but specifically in this context, I wouldn't know what to say about that. I'd have to look more into that. Yeah, Jesse, the all is mind, the all is mental. Yeah, that's basically panpsychism, and you can make a strong argument for that, but the Christians can't make a strong argument for the Christian God based on the fine-tuning argument. They could just make a strong argument for a God, for some kind of God. And so Alex O'Connor's other argument against Christianity is the problem of suffering. And it's not the problem of evil. That's a different argument, and he distinguishes between the two, but the problem of suffering. And a lot of Christians, they argue that, suffering is necessary for some sort of spiritual growth, or at least you're rewarded in the afterlife. They have some arguments against that. But he brings up the problem of suffering with animals. The animals that suffered for millions of years, and the billions of species, potentially trillions of different animals that died off for millions of years before humans even existed. What about all of that suffering? Now, is there some lesson that these animals needed to learn? So that's a really strong argument to make, the problem of suffering. And again, you can give some responses to the problem of suffering. Like, one of them is that we all end up in heaven and it's all worth it and we're happy in the end anyway. But it's like, then why was that suffering even necessary? So, again, like, suffering can be a strong argument, and any type of response you give to that, even then, you could say that we get redeemed in the end, or you could say that it's necessary for our growth, just like how you have, when you're working out, you have to go through the pain of working out to get those muscles. Or another analogy that I think of personally, it's like if you want to get to the top of a mountain, you have to climb that mountain. That's the only way. And Alex's point is that, well, if God is so powerful, he could just start us out at the top of the mountain. He doesn't need to make us suffer to climb the mountain. But it's like, in that sense, then there's no point to anything. And he says, like, basically, if, he says, like, if bravery... if bravery is like a beautiful thing, a beautiful narrative, and we appreciate bravery, we don't have to go through all of these fears to show bravery. If we do, then he'd rather just not have bravery at all. If we have to get scared all of the time to prove our bravery. Stephen, you said this goes into a lot of native beliefs. Who said we can't have heaven on earth? You don't have to see the full staircase, just take that first step, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure. You're right about that. But his argument, because they say, like, suffering is necessary. And I believe, that's why I love the yin yang so much. I do believe that both sides of the coin are necessary. For lots of different reasons. Again, like, and Alex's point is like, okay, the suffering from cancer. You could say that chemotherapy is a great thing. It's an amazing thing. But with the Christians' argument here is that, suffering is necessary so that we could basically in context here, the suffering from cancer is necessary so that we could have chemotherapy. Isn't that such an amazing thing? Like, no. And Alex's argument is that he'd rather have neither if we could. And an all-powerful God should be able to provide that. So, again, the Christian God doesn't make a strong argument for this, but you could argue that, again, just like the fine-tuning argument, suffering is just a necessary outcome of the universe, because, the survival of the fittest, and his argument is that, why did God design survival of the fittest? Like, why couldn't he just make it so that every animal is a herbivore? Like, why couldn't he? From the atheist perspective, it makes perfect sense that these systems have fallen into place and evolved over time. Sure, that makes sense. From the perspective of a Christian God, that doesn't make any sense if that God is all good. But for a God in general, for existence in general, for a higher power in general, you could say that these animals are part of God. They're just part of the universe, and this is just the cycle that we go through. Sure. So I do think that there are strong arguments against the problem of suffering, but again, not specifically for a Christian God, just for some sort of higher power. Stephen, you said suffering builds character. I'll show you my necklace later. My dad went through chemotherapy as a baby. He's 65 and kicking. Do we get the word cancer for disease from the zodiac cancer? That's a good question. Yeah, definitely. The zodiac definitely predates our modern understanding of it. Yeah, that's a different conversation. But yeah, suffering builds character. I believe that. I agree with that, and I've said that before. But then you get into the issue of like, and I know you don't have kids, but like, but just think like if you did, or just in general, like I don't want my kids to have to suffer to build their character. I know they have to go through some suffering, but and Alex argues this too, and a lot of it is about the scale. Is it like the more you suffer, the more character you will build? I think that's true to a certain extent. Obviously, you reach a certain point, a tipping point, where too much suffering will start to have an adverse effect on you. I do believe that. You know, it'll only build so much character until it tears you down completely. So that's still something that I'm grappling with in my mind still. Like yes, suffering builds character, so am I gonna throw my kid out there and let him get jumped by a bunch of dudes and get beat up so he can learn how to defend himself? Like no, not at all. I might teach him self-defense. I might teach him to work out. We might go through these drills, which we do, wrestling, boxing. I show him some small jujitsu moves and stuff like, yeah. So like the suffering from training, but that's not the same type of suffering as getting beat down in the streets. And like, I don't want him to ever experience that, but I do want him to build character. So I'm conflicted there. So, yeah, so, and that's a lot what a lot of the Christians say. Like this suffering is necessary to build character, to add perspectives. Uh, like it's the difference between knowledge and wisdom is actually going through these things. But I don't want my kid to have to suffer that much. Can he build can he build a prominent character without that deep level of suffering? And Carl Jung said the roots of the tree of life are deep enough to reach down in hell so that the branches can grow big enough to reach up into heaven. And I do think there's something to that. He said, oh, I would have to sacrifice a lot. Keep shoes on their feet. Nobody else will. Keep food in their belly. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's not easy. So it's like if I could, and Alex's argument is okay, if you could give people that character, if you can give them character without them having to suffer, wouldn't you do it? Like, oh, I would have to. Oh, okay. Yeah. So like, and from the perspective of an all-powerful, all-loving God, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It makes absolutely no sense. He's right. If suffering builds character, then get a load of me. Prof, this is where you take your experiences and your suffering to teach them better ways. You got to water the roots and watch your seeds grow. Sure, I got to water the roots and watch my seeds grow. But it's like based on this theory, those seeds will never grow to plants, to be big, strong plants the same way that I have, unless they experience the same level of suffering. Is it possible? Like, if that suffering is exclusively necessary for growth, then the more you suffer, the more you will grow. And based on that theory, the people who have been through all of the worst things will have all of the best things to show for it. They will have the best character. And maybe that's true. But I could think of a lot of exceptions to where that doesn't seem to be completely true. So So like I said, that's something I'm grappling with. I do believe in absolute balance. I believe in universal balance, one way or another. So, I'm still, but it's just something I actively engage with every day in my mind. But regardless of the strongest arguments that you can make for suffering, it does not validate a Christian God. So, like I said, a lot of these guys, they want Alex O'Connor to come around to be a Christian. They think that Joe Rogan's going to come around to be a Christian. A lot of times with Alex, they compare him to like C.S. Lewis, and C.S. Lewis was probably the most prominent atheist of his day that ended up changing into a Christian. And I'm sorry, my nose is like all stuffy. Uh, yeah, C.S. Lewis, and I love C.S. Lewis and his writings, and I love his perspectives, but a lot of it's quite antiquated at this point. So we've come a long way in our logic and understanding since then. But I do feel like he was absolutely genius. And I remember when I was struggling with some of these questions when I was younger, I do remember my dad told me to read C.S. Lewis and some of his perspectives on this. And it's just it's fascinating to me and I'm so grateful for my dad and the wisdom he's given me. And at the time, I didn't go and take his advice. But in the last few years, I have been reading some C.S. Lewis and his perspective on Christianity, and I do appreciate it. And I actually have one of his books back here. Where is it? I don't have. I don't. I can. I don't see. I'm not sure which one, but I do have a one of C.S. Lewis's books. It's a collection of his notes on Christianity, and it's beautiful, and I appreciate it, and I see where he's coming from. Still doesn't do it for me though. Like C.S. Lewis, his answer to the problem of suffering, and like I said, for human suffering, you can make a lot of arguments. Like it's part of our personal growth, our spiritual growth. It's necessary for us to learn the lessons, or whatever. But for animals, that doesn't apply. So C.S. Lewis, his only argument for the problem of suffering, non-human suffering, is that they're not conscious like humans are, so they don't suffer like we do. That's a weak argument, and it actually bothers me a little bit. And I know Christians that think that way, specifically Catholics. I know they believe that animals don't have souls, so it's not the same type of suffering. Look, I think it's very, very, very obvious at this point. Animals suffer. They're capable of suffering. Just because they don't have the cognitive ability to observe it objectively and to ponder the details of that suffering doesn't mean that they don't suffer. Okay, that's like saying a baby doesn't suffer because the baby's obviously not smart enough to think objectively about that suffering. But when that baby's in pain, it is still suffering, and you can see it. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous to say that animals don't suffer at all. You could see it in their eyes. You could see it in their reaction. So that's a weak argument, in my opinion. Like I said, just to say they don't suffer on the same level as us because we're conscious beings, not a good argument. I don't like that. So, but there, like I said, a lot. C.S. Lewis is amazing. I love his writings, and the fact that my dad. I remember when I was first questioning some of these things. I remember my dad telling me to read C.S. Lewis, and it's amazing. It's like, how did he even know back then? Like we weren't looking at things up on Google and stuff. Like the internet wasn't what it is now. It wasn't like that back then. So, but my dad was well aware of it, and and I'm glad he was trying to point me in that direction because there is a lot of great information there. So then the only other I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second, people. Okay. All right. So then the only other valid argument for a God is the issue with consciousness. And Alex O'Connor struggles with this, and this is something I've talked about a lot. He can't deny that there's some sort of non-physical realm, that we are conscious beings. And where is that consciousness? Where does it come from? Where does it exist? These are questions that material science still can't answer. So that could be a strong argument for the existence of a God. But again, it has nothing to do with the specifically Christian God. There are a lot of arguments that you can make, and again, panpsychism would definitely explain this. So when the Christians feel like they made a good point, and the only time that Alex gives them credit for like a valid argument, it's only on these points for the existence of some type of omnipresent, all-knowing, infinite creator, not for the biblical or Christian God. Now, you can make arguments for the biblical and Christian God, but then it's not those arguments. Those are by far the strongest arguments against atheism. So that's why I appreciate the fact that he kind of doesn't consider himself an atheist anymore. He considers himself agnostic. So, and then Steven, I don't know if you're still watching, but I'm gonna share this one video with you. Oh, there's a bunch of comments I didn't see. I'm sorry. 100% not trying to give advice about children. That's not your role. Baby in the Bird Bar. Psyops. Okay, Jesse. Chris, you said you're not entirely sure that suffering in and of itself is necessary for growth, but a variety of different experiences definitely is. Okay, yes, I agree. What up, Chris? What up, man? Did you lose your father? Is he still with us? I'm guessing not because you're speaking past tense. My condolences, bro. Take a breather. I lost my mom. I love animals. Animals have souls. I'll fight someone. Religion is in the control business. It's in the guilt-producing control building. And that's something not many people understand. If you have heaven, a place where you're rewarded for your goodness, and hell, a place where you're punished for your evil, then you sort of have control over the population. Right. The church doesn't like the people to grow up because you can't control grown-ups. A retired bishop said that. You can find the clip. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. No, I did not lose my father. My father is still with us. Matter of fact, he actually tunes into these live sessions pretty often. And once in a while, he'll throw up a comment and say hi, or he'll say goodnight or something. It's cool. No, my dad is still with us, and I'm very grateful. And I probably do mention him, but like, my mom's amazing too, and she's still with us. But my mom, I may not bring her up in these conversations quite as much. I love my mom. She's amazing. And she's definitely taught me how to love and how to love myself and how to love others. But intellectually, my dad has always, and my parents split up when I was young. They've been separated basically my whole life. But so my dad, he always kind of gave me that balance where I could ask him questions. I could pick apart his brain. He dropped so much great knowledge and wisdom on me throughout my entire life. I have no doubt that I would not be anywhere near as involved in all of this higher order thinking type of stuff if it wasn't for my dad. So, and he dropped so many gems on me throughout my entire life. And this is just another one that I've recently realized when I was going through a lot of the C.S. Lewis stuff. And I mean, I had been diving into some of the C.S. Lewis stuff for probably the past 10 years, but it didn't. At some point, it was probably like in the last few weeks or something. It hit me. I remember when I was young and I was questioning these things, and I remember my dad telling me to read C.S. Lewis. I don't know what sparked that memory in my mind, but I was like, wow. After and my path brought me there anyway. And he told me years ago. So just interesting. But yeah, Chris, you said you're not entirely sure that suffering in and of itself is necessary for growth, but a variety of different experiences definitely is. Um, I agree somewhat, but what is a variety of experiences? Experiences, let's talk internal experiences. Uh, Blissfulness is an internal experience, right? So suffering is a different internal experience than blissfulness. So if a variety of different experiences are necessary for growth, do you only mean external experiences? Because I think a variety of experiences is necessary for growth too. And part of that variety, suffering, is necessarily within that variety. It's tough for me to separate that because, and then it's like, what do we mean by suffering then? And I think like, I don't think you have to philosophically try to pick that apart too much because I think that's kind of gets us away from the overall point anyway. What we all understand of as suffering, I think we can all agree. Like during the Holocaust, a lot of people suffering. That level of suffering, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know that that's necessary for growth. But some suffering, I do think, is necessary for growth. And like I said, I think just like everything, it needs to be balanced. So too much suffering is going to tip the scale in the wrong direction. But I do think some suffering is necessary for growth, and I think that's what is included in a variety of experiences. So I agree with you, and I don't agree with you, Chris. I definitely want to get you back up here to chop it up with you live again, man. We will do it. I still haven't gotten my computer fixed, but I will. Steven, you said, thank God. Yes, I'd love to meet him, man. Yeah, I am blessed. Maybe not even in a Christian sense. No, I'm not blessed in a Christian sense, but yes, I'm very blessed. I know. Uh, Gifted, surrounded by gifts. Yeah, you can't go to the past, can't go to the future. That's why right now it's called the present, because it's a gift. Yep, it truly is. Nah, you're right. Chris, you said no, definitely both. Suffering is one of them, but suffering is some some kind is an inevitable part of the human experience, but a large amount of suffering is not necessary for growth. I agree. I I'm not positive about that, but like on the surface, I agree. Stephen, you said this is what Stoicism talks about. Yeah, your grandmother went through the Great Depression. She's a strong woman. Yes, and I love the philosophies of Stoicism. But Chris, some kind suffering of some kind is an inevitable part of the human experience. But the argument that we're making, or that some people make, that we're talking about here, against the existence of a Christian God, is the suffering of non-human animals. Is that a necessary part of growth? Because if they're not conscious enough to learn the lessons from it, then is it really necessary? And I struggle with that, but still, like the tree, uh, a tree has to fight against the weather and all the conditions and the wind and everything, and that makes it stronger. Having to resist the wind actually makes trees able to stand even stronger, to where if there was never any wind, they would be weak. And if they were able to grow their entire life without the resistance to any wind, they just fall over because they haven't built enough strength to even stand. So in nature, even with non-human beings, I think suffering can be necessary for growth. And it's just the nature of duality. I really think everything is necessary. So I mean, I wasn't trying to make a huge argument for that tonight, but yeah, there's definitely something to that. But another thing I wanted to address tonight was mainly how Billy Carson was correct in his argument against Christianity when he said how the biblical text relies heavily on the Enuma Elish and the things like the Epic of Gilgamesh. And Wes Huff kind of responded and said how the documents of the Bible, how Genesis in particular here, he was saying, and he said, what is it? Most New Age scholars, or most New Testament scholars agree with him on this, that Genesis was written as an apologetic to the Enuma Elish. Interesting, very interesting choice of words there that he used. Then he goes on to explain the differences between the two. But then he says he doesn't draw any parallels between them. And Billy tried to clumsily explain his position on that. He didn't do a very good job. But one of my favorite channels called Myth Vision Podcast, they responded to this. And he actually brought on a true biblical scholar to correct everything that Wes Huff was saying. And so when Wes Huff said that the majority of New Testament scholars agree with him that Genesis was written in response to the Enuma Elish, well, he just admitted when he said that it relies on the Enuma Elish. You can't write something as an apologetic towards something else or a response towards something else without relying on that previous text. So, absolutely. And then he just, like I said, he goes on to point out the differences. Well, yeah, obviously there's going to be differences. They didn't, and that's where Billy Carson messed up. He said they basically copied it word for word. That's exactly what he said. No, they didn't. They took certain phrases out. And I know Billy Carson sees it, but he wasn't able to express that clearly. He didn't do a good job with that. But it's true. A lot of things in Genesis directly mirror the Enuma Elish. And so Myth Vision Podcast brought on a real scholar to talk about how the general scholarly consensus is that, yes, these documents in the Bible rely heavily on older texts such as the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh and more. And it's no surprise. Like from a historical standpoint, it only makes sense. None of these things were created in a vacuum. So, Chris, you said animals definitely learn from suffering. Look at elephants that are tied down when they are young with ropes, and an adult elephant won't even try to break a small rope when they can easily break it. Yes, okay, Chris. So, they learn from suffering. But even in your example there, what are they learning? So the whole point here is that suffering is necessary, right? For whatever reason. Why is suffering necessary? Okay, it's suffering. Suffering is necessary for us to learn, right? It's necessary for growth. Well, in that example you just gave, those elephants suffered and they learned something, sure, but they didn't grow from that. It doesn't seem that that suffering was necessary for them to learn that. I mean, what you're referring to there is basically, yeah, that's Pavlov's dog. Like, sure, we learn things. Donnie Arcade song, Animals, amazing song about animals, beautiful. These are some lyrics I wrote. Going into balance and tipping the scale. I think I have an old video. I said something like, I'm at the wishing well, wishing them well. Their vision is frail. I found my balance, but I'm tipping the scale. They couldn't see me like this was written in braille. Nice. In my own experience, it was me shifting from those dark aspects into a more positive. And it's not a quick jump from dark to light. You got to go through the gray matter. Oh, yeah, if we're talking scientifically. Yeah, great point. Great point. That's a great way to say it. And I agree. I agree. Uh, but yeah, so if suffering is necessary for us to learn or to grow, then yeah, if with an elephant being tied down its entire life, and then it learns not to break those ropes as an adult, that's not necessary. That's actually completely unnecessary. So like that doesn't show that suffering is necessary to growth. For growth, it does show that we can learn from. Okay, so yes, animals can learn from suffering. When I say that suffering is necessary for us to learn, I mean learn something higher, learn something more meaningful, something beyond. Chris, you said, oh, Steven, you said Chris Mariner. There's a song called Animals. Okay. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so and that's one of Alex's arguments against the existence of God. If this is a perfectly all-knowing, all-loving God, and then I would even work in response to my argument for suffering. It's like, what about the deer that has its leg trapped underneath a tree, and it lays there, and it suffers, and it dies. It slowly dies. It gets picked apart by other scavengers around. You know, it's got the birds eating at its guts while it's still barely hanging on to the last moments of its life. What about that? And then it just dies. We have no doubt that things like that happen in nature all the time. Why was that necessary? Why was that necessary? You know, and this is a deer that's trapped out in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, that no one's ever going to see. No conscious human is ever going to see or find. Why was that necessary? You know, is the deer's is her babies going to come and see what happened to her and maybe they'll learn a lesson from it? I think that's a bit of a stretch. So, I think that suffering is necessary in the general universal sense. I think the ability or the potential for suffering is necessary. That's what I would say. Not all suffering is necessary, but the potential has to be there for us to have diverse experiences. You have to have dark for light. If everything was all light, there would be no separation and we wouldn't be able to see or experience anything because it would all just blend together. You have to have those areas of darkness to separate it. So there's lots of reasons why I think suffering is necessary, but not all suffering is necessary. A caged bird doesn't know that he can fly, but when they do, they soar higher. That's beautiful. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so you know that, and I mean, Chris, did a whole session. maybe not about this specifically, but what did we talk about? I feel like we kind of talked about this before. I don't remember exactly what. I have to go back and watch some of those conversations we had, because I know some of this kind of came up before. But yeah, but maybe Chris, if you wouldn't mind, maybe next time I bring you on, this is something that we could talk about, because there's a lot to be said there. But I kind of want to move on. There's just Steven, this Myth Vision podcast, they've responded to Wes Huff, and it's all about how Billy Carson was right. So I want to show you that because it's really interesting. I was going to do a video about this, and I don't want to now because Myth Vision podcast already did it, and it's just going to look like I'm copying off of them. So I might mention it. They did such a great job too. But so when I did my history of angels and demons video, I couldn't help but notice so many similarities between biblical texts and more ancient texts. It was nothing but, and because I was trying to go through history and see any type of characters throughout history that could be classified as angels or demons. And I wanted to go way before Christianity during that research. And I was just finding all of these characters that I was well aware of that ended up being reworked many years later and put into the Bible in different contexts. Yeah, Myth Vision. You know what, Steven? I'm gonna share the video with you. And again, this is another 3-hour long video. I think maybe it's only like an hour, but yeah, they did a great job defending Billy Carson's position on all of this. It was great. And it's exactly what I said in my first response video when I said that Billy Carson could have used some of those similarities to support his argument, whereas Wes Huff used it to support his argument, when really it does the opposite of that. So, and I would have done a deep dive on it, on all the details, but Myth Vision podcast beat me to it, and they did a great job, and they brought on an actual scholar. So that I thought that was cool. And Myth Vision, yeah, Steven, Myth Vision podcast, those guys are great, or that guy is great. It's I think his name is Eric, but he's awesome. He did an entire video about Dionysus, and Dionysus is someone I wanted to talk about before too. But again, I probably won't now because Myth Vision already did it, and they did it better. But, sorry. Yeah. Now that we got through most of that, maybe I'll light something up now and relax a little bit. What did I do? Yeah. So this stuff is really interesting. One thing I think it's important, because we're all kind of mediators here. All of these, there's so many different channels now making reaction videos to everything that's been going on. Steven, you said what you're experiencing is called synchronized pattern recognition. I've been seeing angel numbers this past year, having strange encounters with animals. Yeah, man. No, you're 100% correct, and I definitely have no doubt about that in my mind. These are these forces of energy, these frequencies. They're frequencies they attract, and they're combining. And yes, it's all part of the global and universal trajectory, is right there along with my own personal trajectory. I have no doubt about that. So I'm not mad about it or any, and there's so much to talk about that I'm kind of just glad that I didn't have to make that video now. They already did it. And maybe I'll make a 10-minute reaction video to their 3-hour video, just so again, I can put that information out from my perspective, and it'll give more people the chance to see it that otherwise maybe wouldn't have. But those channels are way bigger than me, and they're putting it out there, and I'm just grateful for that, and they're doing a great job. So I'm gonna share, Stephen, when I'm done with this live stream, I'm gonna share that one in particular with you. There's a bunch I would love for you to watch, but that one I highly recommend that one, the Myth Vision podcast, the reaction to Billy Carson and Wes Huff, and they just dropped it, and it was really interesting. Also, Wes Huff has done another debate, and this is honestly, I think it's like a 5-6 hour debate. There's two parts of it. The first part was like 3 hours, and I didn't finish the second part yet. I'm not exactly sure. Dionysus is that Greek god of fertility. Yes, yes. They had a halftime show or something where people were saying it's Dionysus. If you remember that, let me know. No, I'm not too sure what you're talking about with the halftime show. But yes, Dionysus is the Greek god of fertility and predates Christianity, obviously. Throw it and I'll catch it. Cool. Thank you, man. Yeah, I really hope you check this one out because it's fascinating. And honestly, you should check out his video on Dionysus. Yeah, because he did like a deep dive. It's very long, very in depth. His research is very, very so on point. But yeah, Dionysus is the Greek god of fertility, but he's also very well known for turning water into wine, and that most people don't know. And the Christians, they nitpick in this sense where they're like, well, he never directly turned cups of water into wine. Well, no, he made rivers that were once flowing with water flow with wine. He also turned there was a bunch of empty jars or something, or a bunch of empty barrels, and he miraculously filled them with wine. So there's a lot of similarities between Dionysus and Jesus, but that's one really strong one. And I don't know what my point of that was, but yeah, but Myth Vision podcasts, they're great. They're awesome. And so what a lot of people are saying now with the Wes Huff situation is that Christianity is spreading. They think that this has ignited a flame, and they think that Christianity is going to make a new comeback, and they think, this is going to lead to some big movement. They think Joe Rogan's going to come out as a Christian, and they're hoping Alex O'Connor is going to come out as a Christian, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm going to do a live dream session on the psychology of religion. That's going to be our next deep dive, because it's fascinating to me. And this is why I've always been interested in religion. And and I've been taking notes on this for a few months now. Stephen, you said that man at that halftime show, they had a man in blue paint at a table with a bunch of fruits. Oh, I did see that. And just set up in a particular way where people were putting the men together. Yeah, no, I did see that, because I did see that. That was very controversial actually when they did that. And yeah, because Dionysus is kind of the caricature of Dionysus is this partying, sex loving, alcohol loving, out in the streets naked type of. Yeah, so, and a lot of Christians don't like that view, but I think his persona has kind of been demonized over the years by a lot of these Christians, and maybe because they're well aware that there are so many similarities between Christ and Dionysus, and maybe they want to kind of drive that wedge in between them a little bit more. So you've heard of Project Bluebeam and how that leads into a resurgence of Christianity. All conspiratorial stuff. Yeah, I know you're into that stuff, and that's great. And there's usually a lot of nuggets of truth in those conspiracies, so nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so for my psychology of religion, I don't want to get too much into all that right now, but because that will be our next deep dive. But like I said, I've been researching for that for months, since I did the Angels and Demons episode, actually. And then after that, all this stuff has happened with Wes Huff and Billy Carson and Joe Rogan. And yeah, on Joe, you said he's not, bro. I totally see this viewpoint of like converting someone, but they won't budge. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I've been through, I believe personally from what I'm witnessing and what I've experienced, I've been through that same shift. And that's kind of another thing I wanted to talk about tonight. Like, I don't want to put myself out there as some anti-Christian content creator. That's not my goal. Most of you know that I've shown a lot of respect towards Christian viewpoints in my videos. I always try to, I try to weave that thread in between all of our philosophies and some of the Christian philosophy, and I point towards more of the similarities, and I'm not trying to dwell on the differences. I'm trying to unify more than divide. But with everything that's going on right now, I can't deny the truth, and I can't resist my perspective on it. It's I got to put it out there, and I've been on this for a long time. Like, yeah, Project Bluebeam. I've definitely heard of that. I'll have to look into that though. But you said how it's causing a resurgence of Christianity. But yeah, uh, statistically, all of the numbers show that Christianity's been on a decline, at least from a macro view. Maybe like in the last year or two or something, but that's those numbers are different. But you look now compared to 20 years ago, there are far less Christians than ever before. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. Like when Wes Huff brings up these biblical scholars, or when he says that the majority of New Age scholars agree with him on certain points, it's true. The majority of New Testament scholars, the majority of biblical scholars agree that the Bible may have been, or that Genesis may have been written as an apologetic to the Enuma Elish, but the majority of those biblical scholars are also atheists. So it's funny how the Christians will use these scholars to support their arguments when the majority of those people disagree with them in every other way, except on that one minor point he's trying to make. Like, yeah, the majority of biblical scholarship agrees with you on that point, and they're not Christians. So, regardless, Stephen, you said I'm not totally anti-Christian too. I've been to church. My grandparents on my mom's side are really Christian, deep. I had a priest at my incubator when I had open heart surgery at 3 months old because I wasn't supposed to make it at Children's Hospital. I could show you my scars. I'm just a spiritual fighter. Always have been since birth. Yeah, man, that's real. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not anti-Christian either. I was for a period of my life. So I would say, and then that's the other thing about like biblical scholars. The ones that are Christians started out as Christians. They started out their studies as Christians. And I'm sure there's exceptions to this rule. Maybe there's not. But every single biblical scholar that I've ever read into or listened to interviews from that is a Christian, just like even Wes Huff himself, he explains how he got into all of this because he was questioning his faith. And he said if any of these things were true, it would completely undermine his beliefs. So he set out to find the truth. But still, he started out as a Christian, and he basically set out to prove his perspective. That's how I heard that when he was saying that. So, but the majority of there's countless stories of Christians going into this scholarly studies and ending up being atheist or agnostic because once they actually study the history, they realize it undermines their faith. When they see all of the correlations between the biblical texts and more ancient texts, it usually uproots their faith. And a lot of them still say they believe there may be some God out there, but they're well aware that it's not the Christian God. I have yet to hear of a single person who started out as an atheist, went into biblical scholarly studies, and ended up converting to Christianity. I don't know of anyone. The only person who was some sort of scholar and well-educated person and then ended up converting you said the satanic panic really opened your eyes too on different viewpoints. Yeah, Satanism is yeah, Satanism is so entertaining. I don't want to say Satanism is great, but they're hilarious. Think of how a country artist isn't gonna like a rap song at first, but over time you see the emergence of country rap and hip hop EDM. Does this make sense? Yes. When you hit the blunt and it hits you back, yeah, man, yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. It does make perfect sense. So my own experience with it was obviously I started out young, and what's interesting is that you can listen to my music and you can hear my growth through all these stages. When I was first rapping, when I was first making music, and I'm talking like 12, 13, 14, maybe even up until 15 years old, I was not anti-Christian at all. I was I was I wasn't agnostic. I didn't really care enough. I didn't know enough and didn't care enough. So I would use the term God and devil and demons kind of loosely, just in the most generic sense. Oh, there's demons out there to get me and I'm gonna defeat them or whatever. Yeah. Or God's always trying to lift you up, and the devil's always trying to pull you down, and just from a very surface level, that's how I looked at it. I wasn't actually deep into it, and if someone would have pressed me on it, do you really believe these things? I'm sure I wouldn't have confidently said yes, because I was too young and ignorant at the time. But I've always been interested in the questions of the nature of reality. The most important questions that we can ask as humans. And so as I started to dive into some of these concepts, not just Christianity, but all of them, Hinduism, Buddhism, just all the New Age philosophies and stuff, spirituality in general, I did get interested in Christianity, and this disposition towards Christianity grew inside of me. And I've always also been very fascinated with just history in general. And so learning about the Crusades and stuff like that, and then trying to explore some of the history of my Native American roots, learning what the Christian church did to the natives, and the motivation behind Christianity to destroy an entire culture here in the Americas, and to burn and destroy all of their artifacts and try to erase their belief system. That's what really rubbed me the wrong way and made me I grew that disposition towards Christianity. Steven, you said 100%. The growth is awesome to see. My cousin's ex was a Satanist because of his older brother. Lucifer using it loose. That's funny. That's funny. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. I need an ashtray. My bad. Yeah, so I did I grew this hatred towards Christianity, and you can hear it in my music. I started kind of dissing them in a lot of ways. I had this song called "Read a Fucking Book," and that's basically what it was all about. How the church is based on lies, and they want to keep people blinded and stuff like that. And there's a lot of valid arguments to make from that perspective. And I could still then, as time grew, I would encounter Christians or religious people in my life, and I would bring up some of these things, and they would make their arguments towards me. And some of these people, some of these people are good at their arguments, and there's a couple in particular that I would want to give credit to, like Guy O.S. Vancini on Facebook. There, his page has been down for a while, but he made me question a lot of these things on a much deeper level. And so a lot of times they would have responses to my arguments, and I was like, okay, sometimes it made sense, and I'm like, okay, they have valid arguments. Maybe there's something to it. Let me start actually looking into it. You said where you're coming from is deep in native cultures. I wish we were FaceTiming. I have a necklace of Chief Seattle. Do you know about him? Chief Seattle's prophecy? No, I don't know about Chief Seattle's prophecy. And if I did ever come across it, I definitely forget it at this point. I don't remember. But yo, Steven, that's why we need to do, homie, I'm going to pull you up for a live session. I don't care how introverted you are. Maybe, you know what, we could try the FaceTime a few times, but I'm going to end up pulling you up for a live session because I don't want you to, I could probably take some great clips out of some of the things you say and share them with the public, and it would probably be interesting to a lot of people. Oh, I'm way behind. Oh no, I'm not. Native female rap artist Stella standing near. Good shit. Yeah. So my point was I started to get interested in Christianity. And then I was also I was interested in the Age of Enlightenment too. So where a lot of those different writers were questioning Christianity at the same time. So your thumbs hurt. You're the man. So I was trying to find answers here, as I do with everything. And I was not opposed to the Bible at all. I was open to it I grew to a point where I was completely open to that. Possibly there may be some validity to it. So I wanted to explore that. And I did for a long time. Oh, Stella Standing Bear, native female rap artist. Very cool. Okay, I'll check her out. But yeah, so I did, and I read the Bible quite a few times, and different versions of the Bible. And the more I read it, the more I couldn't get some of these inconsistencies out of my mind, and some of these contradictions. And I don't care what anybody says, there are so many contradictions. And I wanted to make a video about that. Again, they already exist. Myth Vision Podcast did a great job on that. But so again, I was vaguely, I had no identity religiously for a while. Started to get interested in Christianity. I had no religious identity. Well, I was opposed to Christianity because I was into Native American spiritualism and Hinduism and things like that. Then I started to realize maybe there's something to it. So let me learn if there is. The more I looked into it, the more I saw that no, it's so deeply flawed on so many levels. I just couldn't get past it logically. So I would start questioning people, and I read the Bible, and I read multiple translations of the Bible. I would have, the Jehovah Witnesses would come knocking on my door, and my girl knows this, and I don't know if she's watching right now, but she would definitely validate this. I would invite the Jehovah Witnesses inside, or I would sit out on the porch with them sometimes, and I would make them coffee, and we would talk, and we would have conversations about these things. And I had a lot of questions that they were never able to answer. And it started out, it was one lady who showed up, and then or I think it was two ladies, but the one lady came back again with different people every time. She ended up bringing her husband to try to convince me, and she ended up bringing one of the leaders of her church. And it did turn into a thing. It turned into a weekly routine. They would stop by, and they were just trying to convert me because I was willing to engage in the conversation. Eventually, I think she realized that it wasn't gonna work. I think they might have got tired of coming back when they realized that I was just going and researching stuff throughout the week to try to come up with arguments against them. But uh but I will say, and when she first started, that wasn't how it started. When she first started showing up, I was kind of interested. And still to this day, I appreciate a lot of the perspectives of the Jehovah Witness. Jesse, you said now that you've sparked up, I've got a idea. Is there any room in modern society for some sort of new religion? Oh, for sure. I think there's always room for new religion, and there's probably more room right now. Uh, Hold on. Oh, Steven, you said look up this native iron eagle eye. He has a podcast with Aubrey Marcus. Maybe while you're at work. Okay, I'll check that out. Yeah. Uh, yeah, Jesse, I do think that a lot of these Christian YouTubers that I listen to, that's something they say about like how Richard Dawkins, the guy that wrote The God Delusion, he's one of the most prominent atheists. Actually, I have a copy of The God Delusion on my shelf here somewhere. Where is it? I know it's here. I know I have it. I don't see it right now. But yeah, I also have Darwin's Black. Where is The God Delusion? I don't see it. Every book I'm looking for, I'm not finding it. Uh, Jeez. But yeah, Richard Dawkins wrote The God Delusion. Richard Dawkins wrote The God Delusion, and he was kind of him and Christopher Hitchens. They were prominent atheists that were partially responsible for a lot of people leaving Christianity and becoming atheists. And then a large percentage of the population, like I said, in the last 20 years, the Christianity's on a decline in the public eye. And there are more atheists, at least publicly, than ever before. Now, but one thing that's also happening is that there's more Muslims than ever before. Islam is on the rise. So, cheers, Stephen. Yeah, cheers, everyone. So, is there room for a new religion? Definitely. Now, a lot of Christians, they say when people like Richard Dawkins started steering people away from Christianity, there's a void inside of us as humans that we are going to want to fill no matter what, because we know there's something beyond this materialism just based on our experience of consciousness alone. So we're always going to be reaching for something. And now that there's so many people converting to Islam, they kind of blame Richard Dawkins for that. And Richard Dawkins came out and said if he had to choose, he would rather have a nation full of Christians than a nation full of Muslims. So a lot of Christians are laughing like, oh, Richard Dawkins is regretting his whatever. Like he steered people away from Christianity, and now he's going to end up regretting it because now they're all turning to Islam. And I'm French, gonna hit that French inhale. Got you, homie. Mm-hmm. I got you, homie. Yeah. So, damn. I think that's interesting. So there is a void now. There, like I said, there's more atheists than ever before. That French inhale fucked me up, man. So, but me personally, I'm not an atheist. So I do think that there is a God. My definition of God is just a. I like the acronym that K Reno came up with, the Great Omnipresent Denomination. I do believe that a great omnipresent denomination, that is a perfect definition of God. And it also works as an acronym. So I need a French inhaler. True, that's a good point. Yeah. Truth Seeker, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Honestly, he's nice with it. My favorite, my there's a Christian rapper named Gemstones, who is like my favorite. Homie's incredible. But yeah. So, like I said, I'm gonna do a deep dive either next week or in the next few weeks on the psychology of of religion. I'm gonna talk about that because I do think that it's necessary for us to entertain otherworldly things. I think, like I said, the physical and the non-physical, it's two sides of the same coin. So, and but regardless, my trajectory with, like, I wanted to talk about, like, how I was neutral and then I was kind of leaned into Christianity and then I started pushing it away and then I started leaning into it more. Like, another thing, there's a community of Hasidic Jews not far from where I used to work. And this is another thing that my girlfriend would confirm, because I used to work at this deli and that's where I met her at, actually. But these Jews would come down there and get food, and I loved them and they loved me, and they're great. It was awesome. I got along with them great. I would hook them up. I would make them some nice banging ass sandwiches, and they were cool. They'd come down there and fuck around, but, like, we didn't talk about any nonsense. We would talk about their religion in depth. And this was around the same time that I had the Jehovah Witnesses coming to my house. So, but I was questioning these guys too. And just to be able, I mean, I was curious. And again, if there's truth in something, I want to know. But there are contradictions too. And it seemed like all of the arguments I presented to them, and I could talk about some of them, or I should probably do a separate video about all of my arguments against all the individual religions and their specific God, and why I think we need to adopt a more broad definition of God, a more scientific based broad definition of God. And I don't think that's anti-spiritual, and I think that should be the new religion, Jesse. But regardless, and the new religion is no religion. It's just the universe. So I wasn't convinced by these Jewish kids when they were coming. They weren't kids, actually. They were, like, most of them were actually older than me at the time, but I wasn't convinced by them. I wasn't convinced by the Jehovah Witnesses, and I wasn't convinced by Christianity, but I'm still fascinated with all of these things. I have a translation of the Torah here. I have a translation of the Quran. I have the New Age translation of the Bible, which is what the Jehovah Witnesses read. And I think they all have some valid arguments. Like, the Jehovah Witness argument against Catholicism is pretty valid. Like, they keep, their translation is definitely more accurate. So, and that's one of their main points. But regardless of all the little specifics between all of them, I'm fascinated by them. I'm fascinated by theology and just the psychology of religion and spirituality in general. And what I really want to say, and a very serious point I want to make here, is that I'm not really anti-Christian. I'm really not anti-Christian, actually. So much to the point that before I made that Angels and Demons video, like, my girl, she's really not into all this stuff too much. I try to say what I can, but it usually just, like, bothers her and she doesn't want to hear it. And it's not just with religious stuff, just with these things I talk about in general, whether it's, I mean, she listens more and she's been coming around more and more, and she's absolutely amazing and I love her with all my heart, and she balances me and I need her to keep me grounded. But I bring up this stuff and usually she'll start rolling her eyes. And she said to me like the one night when I brought something up, I don't know what I mentioned, but she's like, she said, you're a Christian anyway, you know? She's like, you love Jesus. And when she said that to me, it blew my mind. It took, like, I couldn't help but start cracking up. And she couldn't understand why I found it so funny. The fact that she would call me a Christian when I mean, I'm no genius by any means. And I would say the majority of these people out here I see on YouTube, these atheists, especially people like Alex O'Connor and stuff, even Billy Carson, like a lot of these people are way smarter than me. For sure, for sure. And but me personally in my life, I don't personally know anyone that I talk to who can make a stronger argument against Christianity than I can. The thing is that when I met my girl, she claimed to be an atheist, and I'm like, okay, but are you really an atheist? And I can make a strong argument for the existence of a God, and I can make a strong argument for the existence of a Christian God, even if I want to, only because I've argued against it and I've heard their responses. I've had these debates with these people for years now, so I know what they're gonna say. So all of the the surface level things that an atheist might say, someone who's not actually interested in all the details and doesn't really care, but they just kind of nonchalantly brush off Christianity. I can make a strong argument against them, and I could argue both sides back and forth all day. So, but the thing is, because my girl calls herself an atheist, I may have made some comments just, and it's funny to use it in this context, but just playing devil's advocate, I will argue against that. I'm like, are you really an atheist though? Like, what about this? And have you ever thought about that? And so she was kind of of the opinion that I was kind of Christian and that I kind of loved Jesus anyway. She said it to me, and this was, like I said, I made that Angels and Demons video just a few months ago. This was like right before I made that video, basically. She said this to me. She's like, you're a Christian and you love Jesus. And I was like, huh, like me of all people? I spent my whole life debating, or I spent all of these years debating against that in so many ways. I even told her at the time, I'm like, have you heard my songs from when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, maybe even into my 20s? I was making songs dissing the church and very anti-Jesus. So it was just funny that she said that, but I understood why she said that. Because by the time I met her, I had already come full circle, not full circle, but in the sense that I appreciated the literature of the Bible, and I still do. And of course, the book of Daniel. Daniel is the interpreter of dreams. I've probably read the book of Daniel, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times. Like I love it. It's fascinating to me. Just as a work of literature, the vivid metaphors that are used in the Bible in general. Like there's a lot of interesting, fascinating stuff. Just even reading it as a piece of historical fiction, and so I tend to bring up some of the quotes and some of the wisdom of the Bible just in everyday conversations, but I'm not trying to do it in an apologetic or a missionary type of way. Like I don't think any of it's true, and you don't have to think it's true to appreciate it. Some of it's true, and that's another point I wanted to make. Like that's something that bothers me about a lot of the Christians. Like, they'll bring up, sorry about that. They'll bring up the historical accuracy of things, and it's like, I mean, what is it? Babylon. We didn't know Babylon was a real city, and then people thought it was just made up, and that it was it was fiction in the Bible. Then we discovered that Babylon is a real city, so they're like, oh, the Bible must be true because no, New York is in the Avengers movie, and that's a real place. It doesn't make the Avengers movie real, like regardless. So that, but but I appreciate it and I love it. So when my girl said that to me, it was hilarious that she thought that I leaned in the direction of Christianity, and I never have, but I love some of the stories. They're fascinating to me. It is a very important piece of literature for throughout history. So, but I'm not any more fascinated by that than I am with by lots of things. I mean, Buddhism and Hinduism and New Age spirituality in general, I'm fascinated by, and Native American spirituality. I got that book, The Seven Fires, behind me there. So it's not just the Bible, and I have different translations of the Bible just on this shelf behind me. I have one. I mean, I have one that goes back to the late 1800s. There, it's really interesting. But I'm also equally fascinated in like the Gunslinger series by Stephen King. Like I think that that's a fascinating work of literature, and it's a bunch of books, and there's a lot to it, and it's very deep, and a lot of the cross references in the stories themselves between the books in that series, other books that he's written, and actual events that happen in the world. It's amazing the way that he weaved it all together. Absolutely fascinating. And I mean, so is the Bible. So and ancient texts, the Epic of Gilgamesh. I mean, yeah, I'm fascinated by literature and storytelling and just the psychology of spirituality. So uh my phone's at 11%, and I started out at 90%, but I got the microphone plugged into it because I can't use my computer, so it kills it a lot faster. So I'm going to have to wrap this up. I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to. I might have lost the comments. I'm sorry, I did lose the comments. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, but I will definitely out anybody over on Facebook, Steven, Chris, Jesse, thank you all for checking it out. I appreciate all you. I will get back to any of your comments once I close this out. Anyone on YouTube, if I didn't see your comments, I'm sorry. And once I close out this live, it gets rid of all of the comments from the live session. So, but if anyone has any questions, just hit me up. Definitely. Last week I explained in great detail my perspective on what I think God is. So, and it's basically referring to the grand unified field theory in some type of way. So, I would definitely recommend you guys checking that out. Definitely keep an eye out. The Angels and Demons video is something that I put a lot of research and hard work into. Spent a lot of time researching for that. So that'll be going up real soon. And I have a playlist on YouTube. It's the Nature of Reality playlist. And all of these in-depth dream sessions where I really dive deep on some of these things, I'm going to keep adding them to the Nature of Reality playlist. The first video on there is this Sacred Geometry video. So I'm only putting the most polished and in-depth, full edited dream sessions on that playlist. So that's definitely the place to go. I would definitely recommend people checking that out. And if you watch the videos in order, it all makes sense leading up to where we're at so far. And yeah, that's about it. I'm sorry, my nose is stuffy. My throat feels scratchy. I'm gonna probably go make a cup of tea with some honey, actually. Yeah, my phone's at 10%. So thank you guys for tuning in. Steven, I'm going to be sending you some stuff. Jesse, Chris, I will hit you guys up in the future for sure. I'd love to get you guys back on at some point for interviews or something. But yeah, thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate everyone so much.